We have some actual Des Claude news for the first time since we've mentioned Des Claude's name in the portal this offseason. That's exciting. Des Claude is being hosted by Alabama for an official visit beginning this weekend. Sunday evening, Des Claude will make his way to Tuscaloosa for, as far as I can tell, his first official visit of this offseason's transfer cycle. If you're just catching up on this, we've done probably 7 updates on Des Claude, and all of them have essentially been non-updates. Don't take them for what they say is happening here. There was presumed leaders. We had Florida as the likely landing spot for Des Claude. Then Florida presumably backed out of this. Des Claude released a list, and his team released a list of like 10 schools, including blue blood schools. All of the Blue Bloods, one by one, meticulously said, this isn't true. We're not recruiting Des Claude. And it's been silent for about 2 weeks since. Now we finally get some answers on a potential option for him. It's Alabama getting the first chance to close the deal at Des Claude. Let's start with the Alabama concept here, Ralph. Would you like this as a landing spot for both parties involved?
This is complicated because I am not sold on Des Claude, the player. I think production wise, he has been very good. Like, you look at his numbers, very good. You look at his skill set, it's desirable. But you have to read into the fact that Xavier was like okay with him not coming back, and USC now is okay with him not coming back, right? There's something there that just has not fit. And USC did not win the level they hoped they would last year with him as a centerpiece, and Xavier did not win the level they hoped they would with him as a centerpiece. So that's something of a concern. But if there is a marriage here, Bama does make sense. Skill set, he's got that. He fits. He's a productive player. He's got the experience. He's got all that. But Bama's roster is also in a not dire shape, but with the Baron Philon saying in the draft, there's some question marks in the backcourt and a real lack of depth in the backcourt. Like you're probably going to start Aiden Holloway and Latrell Wrightsell, which makes a lot of sense. That's what the guys who came back to do that. But Aiden Holloway is a year removed from us wondering why Nate Oats took him, and Wrightsell's coming off an injury, and you're going to rely on him to play 30 minutes a night. What if they can't do that? Behind them, Jalil Bethea may start, which five-star prospect. He's got the talent, but he was a dud at Miami last year. So Claude coming into the mix there gives them at least, I think, a higher floor of what they can be. That is more in line with what we expect or have come to expect from NATO teams at Alabama. That being said, I don't know if Claude, given the track record at those last two schools we talked about, raises the ceiling all that much.
Ooh, I think I disagree with that point. And I'm not a Des Claude guy, but more than I'm not a Des Claude guy, I'm not a this Alabama roster guy. Listen, I,
I'm
I
not.
love Nate Oats as a coach. I think I pretty consistently have defined him as like the next face of the sport. With the
Yeah.
way he runs his offense, you just know they're going to be in the Final Four mix every single year. I think like if you asked all the blue bloods, like when Bill Self leaves, when Hubert Davis leaves, who do you want? I would think Nate Oats is like at the very top of the list for everybody. This is his first roster in 4 years that I don't see the vision with. I just
No.
don't. And I think you kind of hit on it. Aiden Holloway, who knows what his upside is? He averaged 1.9 assists a game last year. If that's your primary point guard, I got questions. Reitzel's
Yep.
coming off the injury, and those guys, even if they are healthy, their last season played in college basketball, they combined to play 46 minutes. Your starting backcourt has not really ever played 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Either one of them. There's a lot of unproven things here from inconsistent basketball players. And if you believe in Jaleel Bethea, that's great. I certainly see the talent there. I think a best case scenario season for him looks a lot like Aiden Holloway's last season, where like, okay, we revived our career a little bit here. But it's not a go-to guy. It's a guy that's like kind of got to come on and off the bench. And there's not really a stud in the front court. I mean, Aiden Sherrill averaged 3 and 3 last year. There's so much unproven stuff with this roster. There's
Yeah.
just got to be somebody that walks in that door that is like a no-brainer all conference type. And they don't have that guy right now. And quite frankly, I've been surprised at the way they've approached the portal this year because it's felt like they don't want one or can't get one. So from that sense, I think Des Claude would hugely upgrade the ceiling. And I'm not a Des Claude guy. I mean, just to bring people up to speed, I've said this on video 7 times this offseason. The guy is so comfortable playing losing basketball. I mean, he
Yeah.
last 2 seasons at 2 different programs, his teams have finished the season with a losing record. And he just gets his 20 and keeps it moving. So I don't like Xavier got a lot better when Des Claude left. I don't know what's
Mhm.
going to happen to USC. I think there's a chance they get better this season. And I'm not sure that if Des Claude goes to Alabama, it's going to make them great, but it's at least giving them a guy that allows all of your kind of questionable lottery ticket types. Some of those guys cannot hit if you have Des Claude. If you don't have Des Claude, you need all of them to hit for us to see the vision with this roster. And in
Yeah.
that sense, I would like the fit.
That's why I say floor instead of ceiling, because the ceiling for Alabama is Holloway takes another step forward and Bethea looks like a 5-star again. And you're not relying on Claude as much. If anything, then Claude maybe becomes a bench guy for you,
That's
right? If Bethea becomes the star that we thought he potentially could be, and Holloway becomes one of the SEC's better point guards. To me, that's still the ceiling. And the best version of Bam and all those guys hitting Aiden Sherrill as well doesn't like Claude's production doesn't factor into that
yeah.
at all. But as you mentioned, all those guys miss. You're probably not gonna have a good season anyway. But here's a guy who can get you 15 to 20 a night.
This video is presented by Underdog Fantasy, and they've got a free pick tonight that you're going to want to take advantage of. Anthony Edwards to score over 0.5 points. Ant scores every single playoff game, as far as I know. Card, has he ever not scored?
Not since I've been alive, and that's 32 years for those wondering out there.
That pick sounds extremely free. Promo code SLEEPERS as a first-time depositor at Underdog Fantasy. You can get up to $1,000 in bonus bets and a free pick. This is the shortest ad read we've ever done. You're welcome. Back to the video. Yeah, that's fair. I also will give Oates the benefit of the doubt. I think being a star guard in the Oates system is one of the most can't miss roles in the country. So I would expect Des Claude, who has not looked great. Well, he's been individually great, but the basketball has not worked under Muss at
Yes.
USC, under Sean Miller at Xavier. Respectfully to both those guys, they can coach their asses off too. I would expect the best version of Des Claude we've ever seen being the star guard in a Nate Oats system.
Yes.
Now there are
Yes.
some questions like is he a good enough shooter to work in a Nate Oats system? He hasn't shown that. And if he comes in a Nate Oats system and starts shooting 7 threes a game, making one of them, that's not a good fit. But I would expect that they figure it out. We've heard since the jump, Des Claude wants to play point guard and wants to be featured. I think he could do that at Bama. And, I can squint and kind of concuss myself in the process. But if I concuss myself, I see a lefty All-American in Mark Sears running the show. And now I see Des Claude running the show, Ralph.
Yeah, you might need to concuss yourself a couple times.
I got to concuss myself. I'm trying. What is the ceiling? If Des Claude is in the fold at Alabama, both individually for him and then as the team, where would you project them?
I think if this works to its best potential, he slides into more of the two role because I think Aiden Holloway still has to play the one, at least from a positional standpoint, and you kind of combo guard it with the two of them and you sell them on that. And Claude becomes your primary penetrator. And you have shooters around him to where the lack of shooting doesn't really matter as much. He's able to get downhill and be a playmaker from the paint, whether that's attacking the rim or kicking out for threes. I agree with that. I think it's going to work. Sean Miller and Eric Musselman are really good coaches, really respected coaches. The resumes speak for themselves, but the brand of offense that both of them play is not as modern as Nate Oats is. Right, Nate Oats' offense is as wide open as it gets, as a tempo as it gets. And Claude, when he has been successful, it is attacking the paint. It is playing with pace, attacking defenses when they're vulnerable. Musselman would have teams where all five guys were within 3 feet from the paint because none of them could shoot threes.
Yeah.
Right. The Xavier team that Claude was featured on probably should have been better, but it's not like they were some NCAA tournament lock when he left. There were guys who took step forwards as well. There wasn't like an overwhelming group of talent he held back. So if you want to pitch it as like he's playing in a system that more fits his skill set with a coach who has experience with guys like this and personalities like this too. If you are somebody who's been on losing teams but demands a position and demands a certain pay number, going to assume there are some quirks with your personality that Nate Oats will know how to handle because he's handled personalities like that before. If he doesn't succeed at Alabama, I don't think there's any case to be made for Des Claude, the player, particularly when it comes to the next level. But I also think if he is going to succeed, it's going to take a place like Bama for that to happen.
In that sense, there is some risk for Claude because I think that the jury would be completely out on you
Yeah,
as a pass at the professional level if you don't look good in the Nate Oats system. So,
correct.
um, we'll see. All right. Last question from me. So there had been some speculation, nothing like concrete, nothing formal, but I've heard whispers. I think you probably have too. That part of Alabama's offseason this year has been the fact that they've been running into issues budgetary wise with who they've gone after. There have been guys Alabama would like to get in on that just point blank Alabama basketball is not offering the same amount of money as the biggest baddest schools in the game right now. That feels like a newish development. They've certainly paid for good players before. And my guess would be Nate Oats figures this out, and this isn't something that plagues them long term. But Des Claude's one of the more confusing price points in the portal, Ralph, right? Because he hit the portal and was like, I want $4 million in point guard. And then every school in the country was like, ha, 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 no. And then it went silent. And so now I don't know here, right? Like, I guess my question is if Des Claude is going to end up at Bama, did they find the money? Or is Des Claude taking a discount from what he wanted? And if it's a discount, should some other team swoop back in and try and get back in the Claude sweepstakes here?
It's probably a little bit of both, where I think Claude's asking price came down, given the silence that was there, saw what the market was. And also, like, who is Bama spending their money on? Right. And we're at a point where you need somebody. So I think they're at a point where they can spend a little bit more of their budget on a singular guy than they were, a month ago. The worst thing that could happen to Alabama basketball is Alabama football missing the playoff this year in particular, because football recruits. I'm a big college football fan, having been to South Carolina. I've been to an SEC school. Like, recruits were taking NIL discounts because they were going to go play for Nick Saban, right? Because why not? Yeah. So Bama did not have to have the most NIL money because they could just bring in whoever they wanted to because they had Nick Saban. Well, you're used to winning at that level. Guys aren't taking discounts anymore. But the appetite for that level of success is still there. So Bama's throwing everything at football. And that has left Nate Oats and the basketball program not with scraps, but without the flexibility they've had in past years.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that I think makes a ton of sense now that you talk through it. It's I don't know. They are in an interesting spot as a program. And if they keep being in an interesting spot financially, I do wonder what Oates thinks of it. Because again, I think he's a guy that's going to command interest from schools that have unlimited budgets annually. And they better get some answers here. Getting Des Claude, I think, would be a good start for this year to feel okay from a Nate Oats perspective. So we'll see. Also, last note, just a quick one. Des Claude, I've talked about how I think there's some baggage here just with the way he's carrying himself and what he thinks he is. Is there a better coach in the country to take a guy with baggage than Nate Oats and figure it out?
Him or Kelvin Sampson?
I think Oats would be a perfect fit archetype wise with the Des Claude camp. I would have no doubt that they figure it out in 1 year at Bama. So
I'm with you.
Somehow, some way, they might have stumbled into the perfect situation. We'll find out. Good luck to Des Claude. Hopefully you enjoy your visit to Tuscaloosa.